The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Growing up as a kid in Oklahoma, where I'm from, the Chili Bowl is the biggest race that we have. The Chili Bowl has kind of been my favorite race of the year. Growing up a dirt racer in Oklahoma, that's kind of the holy grail.
(2019), another year of broadcasting here on RaceSpot TV on the iRacing Esports Network, and what better way to start it off than some open wheel action at Suzuka, the Formula 1 3.5s at this famous Japanese racetrack. Qualifying is underway right now. I am Connery Maddock, and Will Vincent will be joining me in the commentary booth for this one. And Will, it's been a while since we commentated together, but I'm looking forward to get this one started because this is an absolutely fantastic car-track combo. Any open wheel cars around Suzuka are a joy to behold.
Yeah, well, we were supposed to commentate together about a month ago, but that one never worked out, did it? But yeah, it's good to be back, and happy 2019. First broadcast on the iRacing Esports Network, and you're right, it's the series that the fans have chosen. It is now the 4th year of Friday Night Prime Time, and the good thing about this is, Connery, we get fresh faces every season, and it's always entertaining racing, even if sometimes, as is last time at Barber, the drivers don't entirely behave.
Yeah, we definitely do not want a repeat of last week. That was carnage up and down the field. Only 9 cars finishing on the lead lap in that one. But I think more drivers will be much more familiar with this racetrack than they were with the fairly obscure, unless you're into IndyCar track of Barber Motorsports Park. But as we see the first qualifying times go up onto the board for this evening's race, we've got Freddie Oogster getting himself provisional pole position right now, with Danny Garcia-Furlong grabbing himself second on the grid right now. But this can very much all change. We got half the field not saying qualifying lap time right now, and this field is pretty stacked, all things considered. A 5,000 SOF, and we've still got drivers like Victor Preto, Syandra, and drivers like Francisco Speroni and Sorando still not having set any lap time at all. So it'll be fascinating to see how this one turns out as those times fly up.
Yeah, indeed. So, and it's a track. There's a tough track. This Suzuka racetrack, and you mess it up realistically in the first 5 corners of the racetrack. In fact, you can mess up your lap down at turn number 1, turn number 2, because of the power to weight ratio of this car. You are pretty much flat out through turn number 1, but it's then a case of getting on the brakes in a straight line into turn number 2 so you don't lock up the car, Connery, because you then got the S's section, and that's all about how much speed you have coming out of 2.
It definitely is, and the S's section is one of the most pleasurable experiences for a driver behind the wheel on any track on the iRacing service and in the real world as well. It's absolutely fantastic section of track to run, but as we have more times got up on the board. Riku Alatalo, race winner in this series already, only good enough for second on the grid right now. Freddie Ugstad's putting an absolutely stonking lap there, a couple of tenths of a second faster than every single other car right now, but can anyone answer to him? We've got Fernando Guerrero heading his way through 130R right now, driver of the number 8, looks to drive himself towards the Casio Triangle, hasn't set a lap time just yet. This will be his first timed lap. Tentative through the Casio Triangle, careful about getting the power down through the final corners as the track does drop away from you, so the car can get a little bit sketchy. Only a 140.135 for Guerrero, good enough for P number 13 on this grid right now. So that time at the front of the field by Freddie Ugstad, Will, is looking almost impossible to beat right now.
A quarter of a second faster than Riku Alatalo, who himself is a half tenth of a second faster than Danny Garcia Filo. We're having a look at Syandra. Syandra's one of those drivers that when he does put it together can be almost unstoppable. Of course, a 152.6 is nowhere near the pace for him right now, and I think a lot of people's been forgetting about the fact that this is a long track, so if you do mess up your first qualifying lap, you've really got to get back on it for the second lap, because otherwise you're going to run out of time, Connery.
Speaking of time, drivers have about a minute left here as we're riding on board with Francesco Ferroni. He hasn't got a lap time on the board just yet, 35.6 first sector there, which is relatively decent, but don't think he's going to be on pace for getting pole position right now. We'll remain on board with him as he heads through towards 200R and then up towards the spoon curve. Make sure you get the car slow down for here. Clip the first apex very, very nicely. Don't track out too much, otherwise that can compromise your entry on towards the second apex there, and then flat out all the way down the hill and all the way back up it again, even using a little bit of the DRS that these Formula Renault 3.5s are equipped with. Down towards 130R. Make sure you close it before this corner though, otherwise you'll have a catastrophic instant coming on the exit of the corner, and then hit the anchors as you go down into the Casio Triangle for the final time in qualifying for Francesco Ferroni. The final corner he will come. What sort of lap time is it going to be for the Italian? It's going to be a 140.1. Definitely not good enough at all, as that will get him up and towards the sort of mid inside the top 10, top 20 sort of area. But this is how your grid looks for this evening's edition of Racesport TV Friday Primetime. Freddie Ugstad pole position by a huge margin, 2.5 tenths of a second over the Finnish superstar of Riku Alatalo, with Danny Garcia Fiel and Martin van Loosenord comprising row 2. Then you got Ville Lepala there in P number 5 with Morgan Morant, P number 6. Your race winner from last time out, having to get a little bit of work in here if he's going to get himself a podium. But Tony Repuzard lining up 7th with Victor Preto, P number 8. All top runners in last week's race. Jukka Salvalainen and Matthew Prudhomme will bring things down to P number 10 with Matteo Calistani and Ruslan Sabatov in P number 12 all the way back there. And we've got Francesco Ferroni, Fernando Guerrero, David Soranzo and Manu Domingo, with Stefan Chantal, Aurelian Gimlewitz, Rob Yola and Petri Kotavara bringing things down to P number 20 as things stand. We've got Antio Lavoska, Antoine Cousin, Jablowski, Laurie Olivkwoka, Syandra, Scott McIntyre, and Martin Arnoldus, bringing things down to P number 28, the maximum grid size here for a Formula Renault 3.5 race here on the iRacing service. Those last 3 drivers did not set lap times, starting on the back of the grid for them as we get our cars all set, ready and waiting to get themselves going. And just like the Nürburgring, that pole position does not give you the inside line coming down in towards turn number 1. So the objective here for Riku Alatalo, starting on that left-hand side from the viewer's perspective, is to get a fantastic start, at least bring it side by side, and then he knows that he has the advantage coming down in towards the first turn. Suzuka, though, Formula Renault 3.5s, it gets underway. All right, about now, and it's a very equal start from the front row. Uksa immediately over to try and cover off the line from Riku Alatalo, forces Alatalo to go around the outside to challenge for the race lead. Then there's 2x2 all the way further back through the field. Uksa has got the race lead on lockdown as there's a little bit of a scrap further behind between a good couple of cars. Tony Repuzan is in the thick of it right now as he tries to lock onto the back of Victor Preto as they get into the wonderful, wonderful first sector, but the only problem with this first sector is there is a single line all the way through there. Not much of an opportunity to bring yourself side by side down in towards the Degners then for the first time. No side by sides at all. Everyone very, very much behaving except for the back of the pack there as there's a little bit of scrapping between a couple of cars as there's been an instant there coming through the second Degner, and that is going to be involving the cars of Manu Domingo, I spot, is involved in there, as well as Francesco Ferroni, and I think it was the instant between Domingo and Ferroni that has sparked all of this off. Manu Domingo ran into the back of Ferroni, coming up through towards the second Degner. We'll get a better view of it on the replay right now.
Yeah, there we are. Look at the replay. 2 cars go off, and then actually we ended up with about 8 cars involved in that one. What I want to do is let's go on board with Manu Domingo right now in that number 11 machine. Through the first Denger, everything is okay, but then second Denger runs into the rear, and well, as a consequence of that, you just start noticing as we turn that camera around that there's even more actual drivers all falling off track around him, Connery.
Yeah, huge amount of trouble right at the back of the field. Cars missing front wings left, right, and center. But have a look at the race lead. Here comes Riku Alatalo trying to challenge Uksa down in towards turn number 1. That may have just been DRS assisted there from Riku Alatalo. They do have a limited amount of DRS activations to use throughout the course of the race. This isn't how the F1 DRS works. You can use it at any point in the track and at any time in the race, but you can only activate it 8 times. So you do have to be thinking about where and when to use it, because if you use so many so early, you won't have anything left at the tail end of the race to try and defend or gain position in the dying moments.
Yeah, and it's a little bit like IndyCar in the formerly Verizon IndyCar series, as they are currently without a title sponsor. You have a maximum amount of time that you can go, as we like to call it in American racing, on the button, Connery. And a lot of drivers will try and get that done early, especially if they had a poor qualifying position. However, drivers out front, people like Freddie, for example, and Ruku, and even Martin, they need to really be careful, because actually the last couple of laps of this event, that could be crazy in terms of the use of the DRS.
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of points on this track where you can use the DRS work, and this is one of them on the run up towards 130R. As you'll see the drivers stream by on your cameras right now, but it's just a case of making sure you get it deactivated by the time the left-hand turn comes up. We do have a challenge potentially for position between Philol and Lepala there, so the 14 and the 13 coming down into the Cassia Triangle. He didn't swap positions, but it was just a case of Philol just having a little bit of a look, but this has put him under threat right now from behind, because Victor Preto has the slipstream, Victor Preto has the DRS. You'll see him come by. He's already made his way by there, so completely duking out our cameras there, but Victor Preto gaining in position up into in towards what is going to be P number 6 there. We'll see that one on the replay. This was DRS and slipstream assisted, and you can just see how much of a slingshot you get.
Yeah, indeed. So Victor Preto an Iberian driver passing another Iberian driver. I was going to make the point, of course, that Club Iberia and Club Finland have battled it out in the World Cup of iRacing over the years. Finland, of course, and Club D, actually only two clubs to have ever won the prestigious World Cup of iRacing. But that entire move did give a bit of breathing room there to Lepala, because now he's got a 3/4 of a second advantage over Victor Prato. And the way the draft, the way the slipstream works, it's about 7/10 of a second. It's like kind of sweet spot, Connery. So Prato now has a bit of work to do on the rest of this lap.
Yeah, he does. The next target down the road is Ville Lepala. So let's see if he's able to try and put in those solid laps in to get himself right onto the back. He doesn't seem to be within drafting range right now, and he is well aware that Philol right behind could potentially be bring it alongside, since he is close enough. But there's a battle further back though for P number 10. That's going to be Jukka Salvalainen versus Matteo Calistani. We were on board with Matteo Calistani just for a moment, and Calistani, he's had a pretty quiet start to this race. He's still in the same position where he started, down in P number 11, looking to make some inroads in towards that top 10. But this field is so absolutely stacked. It's those drivers that did put in good qualifying laps, they are tending to do rather well in this race as well, due to the fact that we had a relatively calm first lap. So no one is severely out of position here.
No, and got to keep an eye out on Ruslan Solotov in the number 22 machine as well, because he was close behind Calistani as they worked themselves past the start-finish line. In fact, we're going to go back on board with Sabatov in that number 22 car, part of Club Central Eastern Europe. Well, kind of got myself associate membership of that club, marrying a Bulgarian last year, Connery, but Sabatov doesn't seem as strong through sector number 1, giving a bit back there to Calistani.
Yeah, exactly. It's Calistani looking to have the upper hand coming through that particular section, as both of the teammates will maybe look to duke out over the last couple of laps. We do have a car off there. That's Martin Arnoldus, number 28. What exactly has happened to him? He was at the back of the field anyway, but coming through the first sector, let's have a look what happened up towards... Oh, it's a little bit sketchy over the apex there on that left-hand apex, and the car just completely let go, wasn't having any of it, and it requires a trip through the gravel trap to get that car back onto the racing surface, and that's not a good day made worse there for Arnoldus as he goes for his spin.
No, it's not. And of course, one thing I do like about that incident is the fact that gravel traps at Suzuka, gravel traps do work. They slow a car down. You don't need tarmac and abrasive tarmac all over the place like Circuit of the Americas or Circuit Paul Ricard. Petri Cotavara right now under a lot of pressure from Stefan Chantal. That is was 16th place on track. And well, Cotavara is a name that we're likely going to see in the month of January, because with January becomes the Raw before the 24, and then the first ever day-night 24 hours, as we see a pass there, and that is Chantal versus Gliniks there, and that is for P number 18.
Chantal versus Lavoska. Lavoska having tried to defend up in towards the first sector, is doing so successfully at the moment, but he's just hanging on. Does seem like the advantage right now is with the number 19, which we're on board with right now. And well, it was the DRS attempted pass coming down the pit straight, but was ultimately unsuccessful there for Chantal. As we look back towards the front of your field, then Rico Alatalo seemingly does not have the pace at this early stage in the race to keep up with Freddie Oogster. Oogster's broken the draft here, 1.3 seconds ahead of Rico Alatalo. That is absolutely fantastic. These guys had a close run thing at the Nürburgring where Alatalo was chipping away at the gap at the late stage in the race, but unfortunately for him, wasn't able to capitalize. Maybe we'll see the same situation here, or we might see the situation where Freddie Oogster is just off and into the sunset.
Yeah, and it's also good to see Alatalo back in the thick of things in the Formula Renault 3.5 Championships. And I think this is a car that a lot of people's been looking forward to joining the iRacing service. Of course, you had the Formula Renault 2.0 join us in 2017. Now we've got ourselves two new open wheel cars. Of course, this, the Formula Renault 3.5 and the Dallara Formula 3. And what I do see is more drivers now actually running in open wheel cars, as Sabitov looking down to the inside of Jukka Savolainen and decides to back out of it.
Yeah, did have a the slightest of gaps on the inside to sling himself down through, but not feeling confident, and that is a pretty low percentage move down the inside there when you do have room, but not a lot of room, shall we say, into that particular section. But through the S's, they will go up the hill. Absolute joy to drive, as I've already mentioned on a couple of occasions. I just have to sing this track's praises every opportunity I get. It's one of my favorite tracks on the service. But as we look further forward, then we're riding on board with Morgan Morand, your winner last time out. The Frenchman's trying to chase down Martin van Loozenhoorn and Rico Alatalo directly in front of him, but he's sort of here and there in terms of lap times. A 140.8 that last time by was slower than both of the cars ahead, but remember that Morgan Morand does have what some semblance of the double toe here. He has any DRSs that he has saved up through the race so far as well, so this definitely isn't the end of the world for Morgan Morand, but a driver that is struggling right now is Rico Alatalo, because he's going to get past here down in towards the Casio triangle. Here comes Martin van Loozenhoorn around the outside initially, inside line for the second apex. They make contact on the second apex, and Alatalo spat out towards the outside of the track. He'll have to fight with Morgan Morand now coming down the pit straight, and he doesn't have any speed at all. He'll duck himself back within the slipstream though, so this isn't over for the Finnish driver, because Morand has to go defensive. Alatalo has to look around the outside, but is unsuccessful at trying the move, and also maybe a factor of suspension damage for Alatalo here.
Yeah, let's get ourselves a look at the replay. This is side by side into the triangle. There's the contact. I mean, I think he might just get away without any major suspension damage, but then you had a long run all the way down the front straightaway and in towards turn number 1 and 2. And here's a trivia question for you, Connery. Why is it that the outside line is pole position here at Suzuka?
Oh, you've really put me on the spot. Oh, no. Go on, explain.
It was a part of the Ayrton Senna versus Alain Prost wars back in the late 80s, early 90s. And the president of the FIA wanted to give Alain Prost a little bit of an advantage, shall we say. So after Prost qualified in second for the race, they accidentally switched him around before the start of the event in the 1989 Japanese Grand Prix, which is the reason why in the 1990 Japanese Grand Prix, was it the 90 Grand Prix? Ayrton Senna pretty much promised in the 90 Grand Prix that if Prost got in towards turn number 1 before him, he wouldn't make it through the corner. Prost was ahead into turn number 1, and Senna kept his promise.
I think we know exactly how that story ended in that one. It's one of the most famous moments in motorsport.
Not in accordance to the iRacing Sporting Code, of course.
Of course. We do not condone any Senna-like action down into turn number 1 at Suzuka, but there we go. But we do have a pass out there on circuit. Rico Alatalo looking to fight back here over Morgan Morand as he'll search for the grip on the outside, coming through the first couple of turns, but is still unsuccessful at trying to get himself by, and this is just all stemmed from those bad couple of laps ago from Rico Alatalo, bringing himself back into the clutches of Martin van Loozenhoorn, and then of course that contact with Loozenhoorn coming through the Casio triangle, and it caused Rico Alatalo to lose one more position than perhaps he might have, as he gets a little bit sketchy over the entry to the second deck. Now there you can take liberties a little bit on the entry to that corner, but you do have to be careful with the curb. But Alatalo right now sort of in a semi-recovery drive mode, you have to argue.
Yeah, I'd say exactly the same thing. So we'll go back on board of him again, actually, in that number 2 car. He is in a recovery drive, and his lap time last time by 140.7. Of course, he did lose a couple of attempts for a second because of the fact that he was slower to the line because of the contact down at the triangle, but it'll be very interesting to see what his lap time is going to be this time around. Worth noting that Martin van Loozenhoorn is actually now 2.5 seconds behind your race leader, and it's going to be one of those again where we barely actually talk about the race leader, Freddie Euster, I think, until the last couple of laps of this event, Connery, because he's just driving away, he's just holding the pace, just doing his own thing. And let's have a look back to Rico Alatalo, because I don't think he's anywhere near close enough to make a pass.
No. Not at all. The last lap was a 141.2, and compare that to the 140.8 for Morgan Morand, 140.6 for Martin van Loozenhoorn, 140.5 for Freddie Euster. He's just out there just hot lapping at this point at the front of the field. It's really a sight to behold, considering how high the strength of field is. But we do have the positions gained graphic up on your screen right now. You can see Frey Eugster, pole position, race leader right now, no problems for him. But you see Martin van Loosenholt gains 2 up into P number 2, and Morgan Morant gains 3 up into P number 3. Your biggest mover is actually going to be Morgan Morant, actually Rob Boer there in P number 14, biggest mover inside of your top 15, up 5 positions. Antti Vloska is up 5 as well. And then you see the big losers right at the back of the field. Some of those are even retired, like Syandra, down 2 positions, down 13, down 11, down 2 there for Syandra right at the back of the field. And he's not gonna, thankfully, not going to lose any more in terms of that particular stat line. He is dead last, but riding on board right now with Morgan Morant. And it definitely seems that Morgan Morant has some sort of pace here in this one, but it simply can't match Martin van Loosenholt right now. Martin van Loosenholt has bested him on what is going to be all 3 of the previous logged laps. So Loosenholt trying to edge out that gap right now. I think he knows that Eugster is just way too quick at the front of the field. He's just managing the gap back to Moran instead.
Yeah, and one of the things that's worth noting is the fact that Moran was very slow in comparison to Van Loosenholt down at the triangle. And these cars, of course, in terms of their setups, nowhere near as many setup changes as possible compared to, let's say, the McLaren that's available. Actually, we're just going to stop that because here comes Fernando Guerrero. He's going to make a move on who's going to make the move on there? He's actually the number 22, yeah, Sabatov, in towards turn number 1 and turn number 2. And Guerrero is up into 12th.
Gets moved on around the outside as well. That's not too shabby from Fernando Guerrero there, getting himself up into P number 12. So that does demote Ruslan Sabatov off of what was once his grid spot. Started in P number 12, is now down to P number 13 in this one. And we're coming up to around about the halfway distance here now in this 20-lap event, and riding on board with Rob Boer, who has seen quite a bit of action so far in this one. He has been more towards the rear of the field, so we haven't caught it much on our cameras, but he started to, he did make some inroads earlier on in this race from P number 19 up into P number 16, and he has potentially more on the cards here with 2 cars ahead, Antti Lavoska and Kotovala.
Yep, and they are 2 Finnish drivers ahead then of this club Benelux driver of Rob Boer. One thing that has been asked on social media, where's all the paint schemes gone? Well, 2019, new year, bit of a clean up and some new rules to the iRacing Esports Network. As Rob Boer goes completely off track there, almost hits a tyre barrier on the exit spoon curve, loses the position to Stefan Chantal. But yes, from now on, if you are on iRacing Esports Network broadcast, you need to be following the iRacing official paint policy. And yes, Connery, there is an official paint policy. I might even read it one day on YouTube.
Yeah, but the gist of it is, if you have any logos on your cars, make sure you have permission from the original owner of those logos, and don't bring some sort of retro F1 scheme into a broadcasted race. That won't exactly be acceptable in that one. So make sure you get all of those submitted before you want to get yourself onto a broadcasted race. Important thing to note for the Porsche Pro Series that's going to be going on tomorrow afternoon. You don't want to be sort of having an iRacing default paint in that one, let me tell you, with the amount on the line. Maybe even sticks a couple of RaceSpot TV stickers on it. Go a couple of tenths of a second faster, as I'll slip that one in there, Will.
And of course, that is a part of the iRacing default paint scheme, so you're allowed to do so. One thing that's worth, I was about to say, we don't want to see any Marlboro Red Bull cars. And I was thinking, well, there never has been a Marlboro Red Bull car. It was actually a Sauber Formula 1 team when Marlboro was sponsoring pretty much anything at the time. And Red Bull, of course, had just started their associations with the Sauber organisation. One thing I will say, this race has calmed down a little bit, but I still want to keep an eye out on that battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th, because of the fact that last time by, Morgan Morand was a tenth of a second faster than Martin van Loosenholt.
Yeah, he was. So starting to open things up in terms of the potential pace. behind that Frenchman's car, well, in that Frenchman's car right now, as he'll bring the gap down to around about 7/10 of a second across the line. Lucenord edging that out, but by the time turn 1 arrives, so maybe a little bit below wing setting on that car, helping him with the drag coming down the straights. Running on board with Jukka Salvalainen here for Glacier Racing. He's also in a battle of his own as well. He's trying to chase down Matteo Calistani to get himself inside of that top 10. There's a car off there towards the, well, driver's right-hand side of the track. That's Tony Repousade who tries to reverse. Oh, please rejoin safely, Tony. Please, 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 please. You don't want to get protested after this race is done. He does manage to get himself back and going, but let's see what happened down in towards turn number 1. Turn entry is fine. Second apex. The car is struggling to grip up, but is otherwise okay. And then, oh, that curb does bite.
Yeah, Tony Repousade there, number 3 car. And he, well, just lost it, as you say, on the exit of turn number 2. We're thinking about the Glacier Racing car. Glacier Racing just celebrated their 7-year anniversary. That team started in about November, December-ish 2011. Of course, Glacier TV then started as a consequence of that around about 7 years ago.
Yeah, so very
Factoids.
very much happy, happy anniversary at 2 of them. We're right on board with one of their cars right now, as it is Jukka Salvalainen, and he has made good progress here, looking to lock onto the back of the Italian of Matteo Calistani, coming up towards the Castro Triangle as they'll close up even more, coming down in towards the braking zone. But Salvalainen needs a good exit offer here, which he won't quite manage to get, or at least as good of won't get as good of an exit as Calistani in that situation, and that battle will, not be a thing down in towards turn number 1, but a battle that might be a thing is the one that we're on board with right now. That's going to be Anti-Levoska. They're looking to get themselves by Kotavara. They're very, very close down in towards the first sector for the 13th time in this event. Kotavara a little bit slow off of turn number 2, but it's so difficult to go side by side through this particular section that you can make a mistake here and there and still be okay, only in this section though. Running on board though with what is going to be Martin van Loosenhout. This is the battle for P number 2 on track. 0.6 of a second between Loosenhout and Morgan Morand in this sort of situation. So Morand really, really putting in those laps required to get himself at least one step higher on the podium at the end of the race. And they're basically trading lap times at this point. Loosenhout a 536 and a 40.585 for Morgan Morand. So this is basically going to be our quote-unquote featured battle until the end of the race, Will.
Yeah, you're completely right. And I was going to go back to Levoska, by the way. What happened last lap is he got within 1/10 of a second into the triangle, but then actually messed it up entirely, which is why he dropped back. I am keeping half an eye on this one because Levoska is close again as they run through 130R in towards the Cascade Triangle and slam it onto the brakes through the right, through the left. And this corner, actually, the final corner technically on track, is one of my least favourite corners on Motorsport Corner because it falls away from you. You want to get into the acceleration pedal after the triangle itself, but you can't because otherwise the back end can step out as Levoska thinks about going to the inside and just pulls out of it early.
Yeah, the door was open for Levoska to slip his way through, but decides not to take that particular opportunity on the inside curb, so we'll stay in line just for now. He does have a little bit of time to work with here, about 6.5 laps remaining for these guys. We'll have the top 8 up on your screen for you right now. Freddie Eugster, very, very comfortable at the front of the field, 2.8 seconds ahead of Van Loosenhout, with Morgan Morand P number 3. That's going to be the battle for P number 2, but you've got Rico Alatalo dropping back after his pretty good start in the grand scheme of things, with Ville Lepala and Victor Preto there bringing things down to P number 6. Danny Garcia-Phil and Matthew Prudhomme round out your top 8. 14.1 seconds separate your top 8 drivers in this one, but I'm very interested to see how this battle for P number 2 turns out, and the battle for even for P number 3 turns out, because Rico Alatalo getting a little bit with the second win here, so he's looking to get himself stuck in and try and recover a podium from this one. But we do have battling further down, though. Tony Repuzard versus Stefan Chantel on the run up towards 130R, and Repuzard going to sit in the slipstream, going to gradually bring himself closer and closer and closer. It takes the balls of steel to head his way down the inside of 130R. He'll wait until the exit, though, to try and get that one done. So Repuzard going to be on the outside here against Chantal, and he manages to get his way through. That was a pretty textbook move there. You don't want to be side by side on entry to 130R. If you can get it on exit, that sets you up fantastically for the triangle to try and complete it on the brakes.
Yeah, he did a perfect job there. And it's a little bit like running through Blanchimont in towards the bus stop chicane, the way that Repuzard there did through 130R, recognizing that you don't want to be side by side, as Victor Prato's had himself an incident, and that was down on the end of the S's just before the Dunlop curve as the replay comes up for him. But for Repuzard, perfect, just waiting until after the 130R and using that overspeed to his advantage. Victor Prato, that is what I like to call just a silly, slow, messy spin by him. He's down to P number 9. In fact, he's under pressure by Matteo Calistani. He could fall down into P10.
Yeah, Prato getting up over the curb a little bit, which can be deadly in these cars, let me tell you. I've wheeled a couple of laps with this Formula Renault 3.5, and curbs aren't its best friend, so you best stay off them most of the time unless they're very, very flat. So that's one lesson that Victor Prato has learned by having a little bit of a trip through the grass there. But looking at Freddie Euxter, absolute dominance at the front of the field right now. This is basically doing his best Maximilian Benecke impression, except in open wheel machines. Yes, he has this way across the line, and it's just absolutely brilliant stuff. He's running laps like 3 or 4 tenths of a second faster than everyone else, and it's just, I have no pressure. I'm having a good time out here. The sun's out. I love to be in Japan. Love this racetrack. And oh wait, there's a race on?
Yeah, and his last lap, he actually went purple as well, 140.135. So actually, no, it wasn't purple. And Italo has set the fastest lap of the day, but Freddie Euxter, that was his fastest lap of the event for him, and he's now 3 seconds ahead of Martin van Loozenhoorn. And if you're Freddie Euxter right now in that number 1 Club DH machine, and you know the fact that Italo has done a faster lap time, do you start pushing to see whether you can get maybe into 139s?
Maybe. I mean, he did it in, he got into 138 in qualifying. I won't be expecting that in the race, of course, but, why not try and go for it? As long as you don't step out of the bounds of the racing circuit and then get yourself into a little bit of trouble, I don't see why not. He has enough of a buffer all the way back to Van Loozenhoorn. Even if he does make a mistake on a lap like that, it's not really going to matter all that much. But the battle for the final podium positions is where the action potentially may be at the end of the race here. Riding the ball briefly with Rico Alatalo as he gets the double slipstream all the way down towards 130R, and might just have a chance here over Morgan Morand. He does have the DRS open, looks for the move then up and towards Gasio Triangle, looking for the outside initially, but can't bring it alongside just yet. And this is Loozenhoorn's cue now to just get out and away, because these guys are going to fight. They're going to slipstream down the front straight. Alatalo again with the DRS, able to challenge, able to bring it alongside then up towards turn number 1. DRS usage in reply for Morgan Morand as they're down in towards turn number 1. Morand able to successfully defend on the inside there. Both cars getting very twitchy off of 2, but this has given Loozenhoorn a very good amount of breathing room right now. He can just head for the hills as these guys scrap.
Yeah, indeed. So as Riku Alatalo, as he works himself up the hill into Dunlop, gets himself about 4 car lengths back as a consequence of that one. Meanwhile, just to give you an update on retirees, we've had 2 out of this race. Robert and Andra both involved in incidents at the start of this event. 3 drivers had to come down pit road. They had David Soranzo, as well as Manny Domingo and Francisco Ferroni in the number 23 car. There are actually, Connery, almost only 4 battles now left remaining on track, as we've got 3.5 laps to go. They are the battles going on with Morgan Morand and Rico Alatalo. We have a battle going on with Fernando Guerrero and Matteo Calistani. We have a 3-way battle going on with Ruslan Sabitov, Petru Kotavara and Antila Voska. And our final battle, that is between Tony Repizard and Stefan Chantal.
lots of things to keep track of here in the race. For the fall around 3.5 series at Suzuka, a little bit of a change from last week, where mostly what we were reporting on was incidents with lap traffic up and down the track. But that's just the run of things. Sometimes you have bad races, sometimes you have good ones.
Yeah, indeed so. So we're now down to the last almost 2 laps of this motor race. Actually, we've got 3 laps left of this motor race to go. One day I will learn what it is that I am talking about. But that is your race leader. That is the driver of Freddie Uster, who has led every single lap of this event today. As the gap between himself and Martin van Loozenhoorn, that one is up to 4 seconds. Last time by 140.179 for Freddie Uster, as he works himself now down towards Denger number 1 and then Denger number 2 towards the little run underneath the track. He comes in towards the hairpin. Gaps actually come down by almost half a second over the course of the first half of a lap in this event. But let's go back and pay our attention to Riku Alatalo. He still remains in that 4th position. He is still 0.6 of a second back from Morgan Morand as they work towards Spoon Curve now, Connery. And for Alatalo, this is when you hope that you saved enough DRS to help you at the end of the event.
Very much so. This is going to be the flashpoint if anything is going to happen in these last couple of laps here. How many DRS activations does Alatalo have to work with? How many activations does Morand have to work with to try and defend this move? Here comes Alatalo then, run through 130 yard, run up towards the Cassia triangle. He'll try again, looking for the outside, but the thing is Morand's blocked up. Switchback move for Alatalo, looking for the exit of the corner. Bit of contact between those 2 cars as they'll continue to fight through the final corner. Alatalo then getting himself the slipstream and getting himself the overspeed coming down the pit straight. Moran doesn't really have anything to try and to defend this one, but Alatalo gets himself up onto that final step, but Moran will fight back, looking for the inside line through the first sector. Gets a bit of a twitch as well, and that's going to seal his fate. That's Alatalo up on towards the final step.
Yeah, indeed. So we have had an incident with the driver of Ollie Quokka, who we're just trying to see if we can bring that one back to you. But Ollie Quokka in the number 26 machine has had himself an incident, and he's put himself out of the event. Couldn't get on to you, unfortunately, but you're right, Morgan Morand with a lap and a half to go. Now it's going to be the question, has he got anything left in reserve in terms of DRS? But I'll say already, Rico Alatalo is up to an 0.8 of a second advantage over the course of the first sector and a half.
Both cars have a very slight under-rotation of the inside front tyre up towards the left-hand hairpin, so both these drivers definitely very much pushing at this late stage in the race. 2 laps to go, and this one looking more like 1 1/3 laps here in this situation. We've got Let Bala versus Danny Garcia Phil further back through the field, though they're coming up through the spoon curve right now, just getting that traction down to propel yourself all the way down this alternate pit straight there. They do have that pit straight for some of the club races here at Suzuka, but not really used in any higher up series. But Garcia Philol just dropping back a little bit off of Lepola, so not really being able to challenge at this late stage. But we do have a gaggle of cars further back involving Sabatov, Kotavara, Lavoska and Repuzard. Those are the 3 cars in line that you can see on your screen right now. We have the final lap, we have the white flag out. Here comes Kotavara then looking for the move over Sabatov in towards Cassia Triangle, neck and neck at the first apex, but Kotavara has made the move around the outside, and Sabatov a little bit stalled on the exit there, not able to get the power down because of the car directly ahead, but he'll reply with DRS of his own coming down the pit straight. So side by side once again down the pit straight, this time at Sabatov on the outside, Kotavara on the inside trying to defend, and Kotavara for Black Star Racing able to try and defend the position he gained in towards turn number 1, but it has stacked up everyone behind now. So now drivers, if they're looking to gain positions in the final lap here, that is much more possible than it was just a couple of moments ago Freddie Eustace coming up towards Spoon Curve, so it'll be a little bit of a while before he heads his way across the line to take the race win. Riding on board, though, with the car of Tony Repuzard. Then down in P number 15, things get a little bit congested coming through the second deck there, and this time up in towards the hairpin. This is where you can absolutely send it down the inside if you choose to do so, but no driver opts for that option right now. Very close off the corner, but you do have to cut away because Freddie Eustace, what dominance in this round at Suzuka in the Formula Renault 3.5s. It's Freddie Eustace taking the checkered flag in fantastic fashion. 6 seconds, well, rather 5 seconds ahead of Martin van Loosnord right at the end there. Rico Alatalo getting himself onto the final step, but you do have to cycle things back because that battle between Sabatov, Levoska, Repuzard, here comes Levoska, then side by side, 130. Yeah, that doesn't usually work, but Levoska manages to get himself ahead by the time the corner entry comes. But Sabatov, will he try to fight back? Of course he'll try to fight back up towards the Gasio triangle, but it is all in vain, and he might even have to hold on through the final corner here because Repuzard, no, he's hit the pit wall there as Repuzard, and that is not how you want to end your race. He'll lose multiple positions there. Grimlowitz comes through, and Ricardo Lori might just come through, but no, Repuzard manages to get to the line. But wow, what a way to end your race there in not the fashion that you perhaps want, as you see the battle ahead between Levoska and Sabatov. Repuzard trying to capitalize on those two cars fighting, but this is the exact danger that I've mentioned coming through the final corner. If you get the power down too much, you spin up those rears, and the only direction you're heading is into that pit wall.
Why do you think it is one of my least favourite corners in all of motorsports, Connery? It's one of those things, it's a little bit like turn number 11 at Watkins Glen International. There's not many corners like it. And the Jackie Hicks corner at Spa, maybe, but it doesn't have the off-camber situation. That final corner at Suzuka is one that really can hurt drivers. One thing, of course, though, we have got to do is congratulate again your race winner, the number one machine, Freddie Uster, iRating of 7,960 heading into this event. So what we can almost likely say, Connery, is congratulations and welcome to the 8,000 club as well for that number one driver.
I can confirm it. I have a handy little app that tells me the iRating changes, and Freddie Eustace, 8,001 iRating at the end of the race. Welcome to the 8K club, Freddie Eustace. And, well, if there's going to be potentially another open wheel world championship, I know people have been asking for it, then that is definitely a name that you'll want to have a look at and keep an eye on if that one materializes, because Uxter can really shake things up at the front of any field he happens to be a part of. But here are your official race results for Racebot TV Friday primetime at Suzuka. Freddie Eustace wins by 5 seconds flat then at the front of the field. Fantastic stuff. Van Loosnord second step, and with Rico Alatalo on the third step of the podium there after contact a little bit earlier in the race between himself and Loosnord. Morgan Morand was involved in that top 3 fight, podium position fight, all day long, but narrowly misses out, getting himself P number 4 after starting 6th, with Ville Lepala finishing exactly where he started in P number 5. Danny Garcia Philol, P number 6, with Matthew Prudhomme, P number 7. Salvalainen finishes 8th, with Preto 9th, and Fernando Guerrero rounding out your top 10, up 4 positions on his qualifying. We've got Matthew Calistani, though, further back, and we've got Kotovala, Levoska, and Sabatov. That was the little gaggle at the end there that were battling it out. But we've got Stefan Chantal, Aurelian Grimlowitz, Tony Repuzard with major issues right at the end, drops him all the way back to P number 17 with Ricardo Lori, P number 18, Antoine Couson, P number 19, with Ferroni rounding out your top 20. And then you cycle things even further back. You've got Scott McIntyre, Manu Domingo, Joshua Jabolinsky, and Martin Arnoldus, with your retirees David Saranzo, Oli Kvoka, Rob Boa, and Cy Andra. So we'll take a very short break here on Racespot TV and on the iRacing Esports Network, but don't go away, because next time we come back, it is driver interviews time for the post-race show. Don't go away.
the most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Is $10,500 richer. Two-time NASCAR athlete is your 2013 NASCAR iRacing. It's going to be Humpy winning the race, and it's going to be Conti taking away his first NASCAR
2017 NASCAR Beginner Free Series Championship to Ryan Luza. Fowler is a 4-time champion of the NASCAR Beginner Free iRacing Series.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the post-race show here on RaceSpot TV on the iRacing Esports Network. We just had round number 4 at Suzuka for the iRacing Formula Renault 3.5 Championship, and we do have a driver to talk to here in this particular section, and it's going to be Rico Alatalo standing by with Will Vincent.
Riku Alatalo, Riku. What happened there? Because you do come home in 3rd place. You dropped 1 position from where you started. You had a little bit of argy-bargy down at the triangle, and you spent most of your race basically playing catch-up.
Yeah, it was unfortunate on second lap, turn 1, exit of turn 1. I had some dirty air behind Freddy, which I didn't expect, so I understood into the outside curb and managed to almost spin, and that kind of rustled my jimmies, and I was doing lots of mistakes after that, and then we had the incident with Martin, which was unfortunate. Looking at the replay, it was just racing incident. Both gave very little room and just happened to be contact. But yeah, after that I had to race with P4. Luckily, who was the P3 guy? I forgot already. Anyway, he ran out of DRS at the end, and I still had like 4 or 5 left, so luckily I could cruise past him with DRS, and unfortunately I didn't have time to catch Martin anymore.
How hard is it to navigate one of these Formula Renault 3.5s around a proper driver's track like Suzuka?
I mean, it is very tough because you need a lot of throttle control. It's pretty similar to the Williams back in the day, except a bit more slower. But yeah, the first sector is just epic. Left, right, and feels fast.
Feels fast. Of course, Formula Renault 3.5. We are now a third of the way through the season with this race being scored complete. Next time out, we're going to one of my favourite racetracks in the world, Circuit Park Zandvoort. I mean, part of that track's going to be, again, incredibly fun to drive. But do you anticipate any real difficult processes at that track?
I haven't raced Zandvoort in like 3-4 years, so we'll see how that's gonna go. It's a lot of fun to hot lap, but I think racing will not be as good as here or the Nürburgring. So I think the main straight maybe with DRS, but you can very easily defend with DRS as well. But yeah, we'll see.
Well, we mentioned it on the air. It is just past the 7-year anniversary of Glacier Racing. Number 2 machine, part of the Glacier Racing stable. Who do you want to give a shout out to?
Well, big thanks to Valtteri Alander again with the setup work, and Ruskola gave some input as well, so big thanks to those two, and yeah, without them I wouldn't be fast. Big thanks to them.
Well, thank you very much, Rookie Relatalo. Connery, back to you. And even though we haven't known what drivers to talk about, we're less than 24 hours away from the Pro Series that I've been looking forward to for the last 3 months, but you've only known about it for the last month.
Yeah, exactly. The Porsche Pro Qualifying Series, 1:45 GMT tomorrow afternoon. And wow, that is going to be, already, and we're only a week into the season, that's going to be one of the races that you definitely do not want to miss. Belle Isle, so a very, very tough circuit to start things up for a pro qualifier. It's going to be myself and Jack Styles bringing you the coverage for that one, but this is where sim racing gets very, very serious indeed, because you get a good finish in this series, you get yourself inside that top 20, and all of a sudden, you're in contention for your share of a $100,000 prize pool. That is on par with some of the big tournaments in other areas of esports. I'm really, really excited for it.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting that the eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series powered by iRacing, they also will be running for $100,000 in 2019. About the Porsche Pro Series, yes, top 20 will qualify, but Connor, there's an interesting little quirk, because drivers who finished in the top 20 in the 2018 iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series have been told they are eligible to transfer their World Championship license over to the new Porsche World Championship Series. Not all 20 drivers will do so, so it's a case of really racing for every point, because even if you don't make the top 20, there may still be a golden ticket lying for you when we get to the end of Feb.
If he takes it, I just want to see Hutu in the GT car, because he's been known to not really enjoy those sorts of cars. He much prefers the open wheel discipline, but I'd be very interested to see how he gets on against some of the best GT racers that we have here on the iRacing service, like Maximilian Venig, like Max Benecke, Josh Rogers, all those names. It'd be interesting to see how he stacks up if he decides to transfer his license over, but all I can tell you is that series is just going to be ridiculously good, and the standard of racing is going to be so high. I'm hazarding a guess here, but I think we'll see on the order of 7 to 8k strength of fields.
Oh yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that one. And also, I mean, I have seen Hutu race in tin tops once or twice. It's very rare that he does so. I've seen him race in certain LMP cars as well. And one thing that's also at the back of my mind is, I kind of alluded to before we went on air, Connor, January is here, and that means that Daytona becomes the haven for sports cars. Before the Daytona 500, it is all about drivers doing endurance racing. The Raw before the 24, live here on RaceWhat TV, the 24 hours of Daytona. Actually, it's my favourite 24-hour race of the year. As good and as much as I love the Le Mans 24 hours, Daytona is what does it for me, and it will be the first ever day-night 24-hour race in iRacing history.
Yeah, making history on the iRacing service with that one. It would be, it just adds a completely new dynamic to endurance racing, because we have had a couple of endurance races already that have been broadcast with the new system, the likes of the Neo Endurance Series, Sports Car Open, and it changes the whole atmosphere of the race, especially for the spectator, because you can see the lighting change as the clouds move, and you've got the sun going down as well, everything becoming a lot more picturesque here during the race, and it just adds more of a authentic feel to the racing that's going on, instead of just having a static environment.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, we at the Porsche Sim Racing Summit, the final race was a 1-hour race running into the sunset, and even then you could see the change to the cars over a 1-hour race as the track started to cool, the grip levels started to change, and it did affect drivers in that event. This is really when we see the team aspect of racing, Connie, because in a static environment, you kind of know how a car is going to be when you get in at hour number 13, hour number 14, but this now, with damage, with increased tyre wear and all these other different things, communication between team drivers is going to be key.
especially for those Daytona prototypes, because they can be very, very sketchy on cold tires, for example. And as that track temperature drops off, then if you have your car set up to handle okay in the day, then you're going to have a little bit of an issue when it comes to the night. But I think because of how the seasons work out in that particular race, you're racing much more in the night than you are in the day, so they'll set it up more for the night side of things. But that is all things to be discussed when that race rolls around. But I think we're about time to close up shop here on Friday primetime. But that was myself, Connery Maddock, and Will Vincent bringing you the race here today. Join us next week, and join us especially tomorrow for a bumper weekend of racing. Goodbye.